Hello, podcast listeners. Firstly, a warm welcome back to the new episode of The Print Village and also the new episode of Aravind Speaks podcast. Now, Print Village is a show where I review and dissect the books that I think are worth reading. And in today's episode, I'll be reviewing the book Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes. Now, the book is about how men can embrace vulnerability, create strong relationships, and live their fullest lives. So without a further ado, let's jump into the episode. Yeah, we're back. Now, firstly, I would like to start off with my personal experiences, my intimate experiences, and also how I came across Lewis and how I got to know about this book. And why I really wanted to do this book review, especially on the podcast, right? So I'll be going into that, and then we'll get into who Lewis Howes actually is, and also the book review as usual. Thank you so much. Let's jump in. It's no doubt that growing up without parents is tough. Whoever it could be, so growing up without parents is tough. Even when you have a great support system and an extended family that cares about you, you'd still go through this feeling of misery, insecurity, and loneliness. It would be way worse if you lose any of your parents to suicide. I know that, and the research proves that. So that's one circumstance I had to experience in my early childhood. And perhaps that's what made me become who I am today, an introvert who loves books and fancies content on the internet over communication in real life, probably. Now, there are more than 7.7 billion people in the world that go through some sort of difficulty, shame, guilt, and misery sometimes. It's just that the levels vary. Coming to the author Lewis Howes, he publicly said that he was sexually abused when he was a kid. And from that point, his journey to becoming one of the most valued entrepreneurs and podcasters in the country of the United States was an inspiring journey. My first introduction to Lewis was through one of his podcast episodes. It was an interview, I remember, and it was great. It was informative and educating. And it was half a decade ago when I was in Ireland. Then I looked up about him, and his story really moved me. I was 27 at the time. And actually, my core reason to listen to podcasts was simple: to be able to communicate fluently. Now, going back to the Lewis Howes podcast, The School of Greatness, it's where I listen to one of the most successful people, especially from the States, and a lot of influencers, the businessmen and the life coaches, the influencers now I follow on social today. Most of them have been the guests on Lewis' podcast, The School of Greatness. My interest in podcasting grew over the years through him and his show, and also his podcast guests. The School of Greatness is still to this day one of the most successful and active podcasts in the world. Author's introduction. Lewis Howes is a New York Times best-selling author of the hit book, The School of Greatness. He is a lifestyle entrepreneur, high-performance business coach, and a keynote speaker. A former professional football player and two-sport All-American. He is a current USA men's national handball team athlete. I think he's still the current national handball team athlete by the time we are recording this episode. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. Now, he hosts a top 100 iTunes ranked podcast, The School of Greatness, which has over 100 million downloads and over 1,300 episodes since it launched in 2013. The White House and President Obama recognized Lewis as one of the top 100 entrepreneurs in the country under 30. Details magazine called him one of the 5 internet gurus that can make you rich. Lewis is a contributing writer for Entrepreneur and has been featured on The Ellen Show, The Today Show, The New York Times, People magazine, Forbes magazine, Fast Company, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Men's Health, and other major media outlets. Now, Mask of Masculinity is Lewis Howe's second book, I remember. I think it's second book. And pardon me if I'm wrong, but again, I think it's second book. And I came across this book, again, after listening to podcasts. I used to have this habit of, listening to audiobooks as well. And there used to be an app called Headway. I had it on my mobile. So in that app, I came across this book, Mask of Masculinity. It was a shorter version, a 15 minutes version. I listened to it. I thought it was great. And we're here now. So after listening to the complete book, I'll be giving you my take, my review of the book, Mask of Masculinity. Book review. Firstly, the book Mask of Masculinity comprises 11 major chapters on Audible and is over 6.5 hours. The book starts off with an introduction into Lewis Howe's childhood, his beliefs into what a real man is growing up. And mostly, it's about working hard and being tough. And he also described why it really didn't work for him and why it didn't really work for him to find his happier self, and why the ideology of hard work and being tough, not showing emotions, is not as real as it's told. He addressed the driving factors for violence, depression, and suicides in men, and his desire to help with the help of this book. The book discusses the masks that we men wear to hide our emotions, or to confront a situation, or to transition through a situation. And he elaborates on the idea of becoming free from all these masks and live our lives greatly by being true to ourselves. Lewis mentioned it clearly that it's not lecturing or criticizing. His intention was to come up with a helpful resource for us to become better. And after listening to the whole book, it's safe to say that I'm happy to read that book. It actually took me to places, it made me introspect myself, get better in some areas. Basically, I agree with the fact that it was not a critique, or it's not even a lecture. Rather than it's a helpful resource. It's a lifestyle guide for you. Basically, we all have our own ideologies, opinions, and a definition for what a man is, right? And that's where the book helps men to be more of themselves and not to abide by the unrealistic ideologies and the standards the society expects. They ultimately lead you into suffering for a long time. In his own words, we all have our own insecurities and fears. And intentionally or unintentionally, we try and cover up our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, mostly in fear, right? Mostly because we don't want to be judged. It's not easy to take it, right? However, the interesting part for me in the whole book was when Lewis mentioned how he could come to this place of understanding. He said that, he came to this place of understanding with the help of questions, by asking thoughtful questions. By asking questions, he could investigate the 9 masks that we men often wear. And this is the fascinating part for me, and I'll explain all these 9 masks Lewis was talking about. He spoke about in detail, but again, I'll just glance through them. Just to give you an idea, I'll glance through all these masks Lewis was talking about, right? So firstly, the stoic mask, where, we often hide our emotions and show toughness to feel safe, right? To not to be judged. And the athlete mask, where we often carry our self-esteem by the time spent in the gym, believing that only a good athlete is a good man. The material mask, where our self-worth depends on our bank account. The sexual mask, where we put the number of women we slept with on a pedestal rather than how good the relationship was. The aggressive mask, where we constantly tell ourselves to not back down. The joker mask, where we find our self-worth with sarcasm, cynicism, to find our superiority. And the invincible mask, where we act like it's all under control even when it's not. And the know-it-all mask, where we try or dominate intellectually and project ourselves in such a way that we'll never need any help from anyone else. Finally, the alpha mask, where we segregate men into either winners or losers, the alphas or the betas. I honestly thought Lewis did a great job providing insights and consequences into each mask with the help of real life experiences from the real conversation he had with people, with friends and mentors. The fact that he could come up with examples either from his past or from his friends was top notch. He really dig deep. The whole listening experience was awesome for me. It was nothing different to listening to a spiritual guru preach. In fact, it's more effective as it's coming from the current real life experiences. Overall, it's encouraging, educative, and moving, to be honest. Episode conclusion. I did not choose this book, Mask of Masculinity, by accident, right? I did not go there, read the book by Lewis Howes, Mask of Masculinity, and got it for you. No, I did not choose this randomly. As someone who hosts a show and creates content, it's my job to either be a resource or to provide a service or to provide a resource for all of you listeners. So with 85% of our podcast listeners being men under 35, that's a real start. So it's 85% of our podcast listeners are men under 35. And that's the reason I thought it's important and it'll be useful. And that's the reason I'm doing it. And even if you're a woman, I still recommend this book. If you're into reading books, this is definitely a helpful book for sure. As it has the potential to help you understand your man better, forever. A perfect man, in my opinion, doesn't exist. But at the same time, we need to realize and understand that, asking for help, being kind, showing emotions, nurturing relationships are some better things we can dream and we can do. So this book is really special because I could introspect myself, throughout these masks, the situations, the beliefs, not in a judgmental way, but with a caring perspective. The book is, listening to this book is definitely humbling, and I'll definitely recommend you to read it. It'll take you to places that you thank later. I believe that. And with that, so the episode's over. So hope you enjoyed the episode today, and I'll definitely come back with a new book review on the Print Village very soon. And until then, have fun, take care, cheers.